So, last summer I had an idea. I wanted to build an acoustic guitar with an axe. It started as a joke in my mind, but soon I was like, I'm gonna do it. And why I wanted to do this, there's a short background story. Last spring I graduated from this luthier school in Finland, with top marks, of course, and I even got a scholarship. But while that was cool, at the same time, I cannot no longer use the school's workshop. So I lost all my machines. And all that was left was this axe and rusty old handsaw. I started to get the feeling to work with an axe, and it actually started to look like a guitar neck. Yeah, this headstock was horrible. Up until now I just wanted to get the feeling to working with an axe and generally feel if this whole project is possible. So next step was to make a new headstock. And I also came up with this idea how I would solve the first problem, how to make the tuner's peg, how to make holes for the tuning machines. And it came out pretty good. At this point, I let the glue dry and set the neck aside for a while and moved on to the next step, perhaps the biggest problem in the whole project, cutting the sides of the guitar. First, I had to get one side flat. It took me about 4 hours, but with breaks, it took me the rest of the day. I was really surprised how good results I got with that rusty old handsaw, and it gave me a lot of hope that this project could be possible. Next day, I started cutting the actual guitar side. This next cut was a bit more difficult and slower, as I had to keep a certain thickness, roughly the same. Still, I was really surprised how good it turned out. Now that the side of the guitar was cut, it was time to bend it. Basically what you need to bend wood is water and heat. I had no tap water and no bending iron. I had something better: lake and sauna. I put the side of the guitar on bottom of the lake and then waited the sauna heater to get warm. And once the heater was warm enough, I started the bending progress. I couldn't finish the whole bend in just one session, although I was still very proud of how well I was able to cut this piece. It was still quite thick, 4 or even 5 millimeters thickest, so bending the steepest part was quite difficult and few cracks appeared, but some glue and another try. This time I had a slightly different approach. I was going to cook it. And when I had boiled it for about half an hour, it was time to make the final bend. And this time I was able to make it. While I still got a long way to go, at this point I was already 100% sure that I would finish this instrument and it would make some kind of noise when I play it. My plan was to cut this in half to get a good book match. I used this pre-planed piece of scrap wood for the front and back blocks. I could have also made these pieces from log, but I think I couldn't resist this already almost ready shape. And then it was time to make the neck joint. This was perhaps the biggest of the remaining problems. The surface to which the fingerboard will be glued on was slightly off angle, so I had to take that into account when making these cuts. And precision tools were not part of this project, so I had to eyeball it and let the feeling guide the saw. I had a few ideas how to make this neck joint, but this was actually the best of them. Simple, and it worked. This turned out surprisingly well. The neck angle was just right, and I also got the fingerboard angle fixed. Then it was time to cut the top and bottom pieces. This was luckily super easy to fix. Although the cutting quality was still good with this saw, it was super slow. So after the second piece, I bought a new saw. It was twice as fast, but also the cutting quality was twice as bad. However, I was so tired of sawing at this point that I made the last piece as well with it. This piece was maybe a little bit too thick from this end, but luckily I had a solution. Not the prettiest bracing I ever done, but then again, I made it with axe. And finally, the last cut I had to make for this project, the fretboard. And I went back to my old saw because I needed some accuracy for this cut. Again, perfect cut with trusty old saw. was perhaps a little too risky to carve the top with an axe. So next to sound hole, the top thickness was maybe 0.5 millimeter. So I made patch. And accidentally made Ed Sheeran's signature guitar. And little bit goop to fill these holes. I almost went too far with this cleaning because it almost started to look too good. Then I made these filler pieces under the fretboard. And then it was time to make the bridge. This was the last problem to solve. But I had already pretty much figured it out while I was working on earlier stages. I used the same method that I used to make holes for tuning machines. Scale turned out to be exactly 15 pine cones, 1 sound hole and half spruce cone. These fretboard cuts had to be made with a suitable saw, otherwise they would have been too wide. Interesting fact, although I had already decided what scale I would use, I didn't take any measurements when I built the neck and cut the fretboard. Still, the 14th fret happened to be exactly at the point where the neck joins the body. Just like they do this at Martin's Guitar Factory. And surprisingly, there were no fret rocking at all. first sound test, of course, in sauna. And now, finally, an interesting sound test between my first guitar and this one. I'll play a short melody on both guitars, and this will be a blind test. And if you guess it right, you will win a prize. And the correct answer was guitar A was my first guitar and guitar B was this one. If you got it right, you won a pine cone. You can fetch your prize from nearest pine forest. Thank you for watching.